This morning, I want to tell you what I think is one of the more humorous stories in the Bible regarding the family. And, when Jesus was born, there was, you'll recall that the Bible says, but Mary treasured all these things in her heart. Remember that? So she put them to memory. You women are way much better than that. Or worse than that sometimes. Because you put those things into memory and you don't forget them. Right? And so Mary, it says purposely that Mary put those things in her heart and treasured them. And so now we're going to look at a story about Jesus. Now every year his parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up as usual for the festival. And when the festival was ended and they started to return, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem. But his parents didn't know it. Assuming that he was in the group of travelers, they went a day's journey. And they started to look for him among their relatives and friends. When they didn't find him, they returned to Jerusalem to search for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, "Child, why have you treated us like this? Look, your father and I have been searching for you in great anxiety." And he said to them, "Why were you searching for me? Didn't you know that I must be in my father's house?" But they did not understand what he said to them. Then he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. And his mother treasured all these things in her heart. I find this story to be fairly humorous to me. I was the stay-at-home father, so early on I was home, and so Stevie and I went to the mall quite often, and things like that. How many of you ladies remember the first time that your kid hid themselves in the clothing department? Right? I don't know why, but they all do. Right? And they hide themselves in there, and all of a sudden you've been looking at the same, you may have been looking at the same blouse for 20 or 30 minutes, and you turn around and they're gone. And then you have that, do you remember the panicked feeling that you got in you? My first thought was, Paul was going to kill me. And so you get that panic feeling. I can't find him. Where would he have gone? Right? So imagine that. So one of the things you have to get when you read the stories, you have to understand that it was normal that many of the families lived in what was kind of a communal living type of thing. And so it was normal for kids to just be at another kid's house for a day or something. Spend the night. It wasn't that big of a deal. And so we don't know, who was involved in that group. As far as I know, maybe John the Baptist's parents were also there, and they were playing, they thought that they were playing together, those kinds of things that you just thought, they were playing, and no big deal. That's why, don't think that Mary and Joseph were poor parents because they didn't think about Jesus for a whole day. That wasn't the deal. That it was commonplace for your kid to be spending the time with someone else. And so it's just that, after a day, they're thinking, I haven't seen him. I thought he was with you. Right? That's what everybody's, I thought he was with you. Because Mary and Joseph are probably not right together. Joseph's probably hanging out with the guys. They stopped for an 8 a.m. tea time. I don't know. But they're probably hanging out kind of together, Mary with the women and Joseph with the guys, and they're just hanging out kind of like all of us do, right? And And they come back together and then, where's Jesus? Well, I thought he was with you. No, I thought he was with you. You think he's with Elizabeth? I don't know. He didn't tell me he was spending the night at so-and-so's house. I have no idea. They called him, they texted him, nothing. You know how we are, right? And if you try to text your kid and he's below the age of 20, he will not answer. If you try to call them, they will not answer the phone call. How many of you have gotten that with these new phones? They won't answer the phone call, but they will look at their text. They'll let that thing ring off the hook, but they look at the text. Here, we don't even have that possibility, right? Here, they have to start going through the family. And they're probably going through the cousins first and, getting further out. Is he at so-and-so's house? No, he's not with so-and-so. And you always traveled together back then because it wasn't that safe to be out on the road. You have to remember, they're still being ruled by a whole other country. And so they all traveled together. It was normal. And so they finally figure out he's not here. We got to go back. Now imagine that. Now, I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe that I've heard that horses can usually go somewhere around 25 miles a day for like this type of a caravan thing. Assuming they were using horses or camels or something like that. Think about that. They've gone for a whole day. So that would be similar to you and I driving to, is Idaho a full day's drive away? 12 hours, yeah. So imagine you drove to Idaho.
Why would you want to drive to Idaho?
Yes, the only reason I would drive there is I have a house waiting for me. So, so imagine that they've been on the road for a whole day. And now they've realized he isn't there. They have to go back, likely somewhere around 25 miles, or in our day, however, the 12 hours worth of driving. We don't think about that much, but this was not just turn around and see if you can see him in the rearview mirror. It's not that way. This is Home Alone really one. Remember Home Alone, where they went off without that kid? This is Home Alone, the original. Right? They've realized, oh my goodness, he's not with us. And now they have to travel a full day's travel to get back. Now I want you to know, judging by what we can perceive of Mary and Joseph's attitude, they are much more patient parents than I would be. If I were to ask you, and you were to be honest, would your attitude be astonished that he was there? Or would you have a different attitude by the time you drove 12 hours to get back and find him? What? Yeah, he'd been there for 3 days by the time they get back. So, my attitude is not going to be astonished. It's not going to be amazed. By the time I get there, the top of my head has to be sewed back on, and I am ready to kill this kid. Right? Let's be honest. That's the way we would be. And they get back. Now, Jerusalem is not a small city. In that day, it would have been extremely busy. So imagine losing your kid at Christmas time in a mall with Costco, Sam's Club, Bed Bath & Beyond, all of those stores that are packed all the time. Imagine losing your kid at Christmas time during that. Because this is during the festival. And so, how many remember, again, what's the festival? It's Passover, right? The festival of booths. is what it's also called. But it's Passover. And it was very normal for every Jew that could possibly get there to go. And many Jews would travel hundreds of miles to get there. Because see, the closer you were to the temple, the closer you were to God. Because God lived in the temple. Okay? So everybody wanted to go to the temple. And so this place was packed out and crowded. And I'm guessing that traffic was it was like LA. And they're going against traffic. So imagine you're trying to go against traffic on the freeway going that way. Because there's one road. And so it's not easy. And I can imagine that they were looking for him all the way, right? It says that they found him in the temple. But I'm sure that they were looking for him the entire way back. Which is why it took them 3 days to get back. Because they've got to look in is he here? Right? All the caravans that left since, they think, well, maybe he realized we were gone and hopped into a caravan, so they're checking everybody on the way in. And so they finally find him in the temple. Wow. Again, I'm just thinking of what I would have been doing at that point. But when they find him, he's teaching the teachers. I'll tell you that there's a whole books and books and books on theology just aimed at when Jesus understood his divinity. Just on that. Because we don't know. When Jesus became aware of his divinity. I mean, a lot of people think that it was when the dove came down on him in baptism. And then some people think it would have been at his bar mitzvah, which, by the way, would likely may have actually occurred there in Jerusalem at that time, because your bar mitzvah generally when you're about 12 years old. And so, did he just become aware of his divinity? But he certainly understood something, because he said, "Did you not know I would be in my Father's house?" And I will tell you that I am often amazed at other people's patience with kids. Being an older person, when we had our son, that doesn't count. I am very aware that I sometimes have less patience with some things. Are any of you like that? I realize it'd be great for him if I was more patient, but that's not going to happen at this point. So, moving along. But here Jesus is teaching the teachers, and it doesn't say that they really scold him. Can you go back to that point where it says what they tell? Why have you done this to us? Right? That's really not that hard of a scolding. Why have you done this to us? We've been looking all over for you. We all would have said the same things in different terms, but it's generally the same thing. What are you doing? Your mom was about to have a heart attack. What are you doing? So, they're anxious, but I don't know if it's because of where they found him. And by the way, kids, if you're going to do something, make sure you end up in the church, because you're going to be a little bit better off. Just a little. And he said, "Didn't you know that I would be in my Father's house?" As if that was something they should have known right off the bat. love the patience that this passage conveys to us. They didn't understand, but Mary filed it away for later. Isn't that great? Moms generally are so much better at taking and a lot of stuff that we've given them, grief, and not conveying that back than we dads are. And so, I don't like to talk about generalizations, but really in this case, that's what you have to do. Most moms are just a whole lot more patient than most dads. My mom was the person that raised me. My dad was a pastor and rarely around. And so Mom was the one that would have gone out and found me. And I will say she would have been redder than a tomato by the time she found me. But I can see where she would have been the patient one. Being able to say, hey, we were worried. And then says, I know one of the translations says, pondered all these things in her heart, treasured them up, put them there to think about later. And moms are so much better at that than we dads are. I know that you're all thankful for your mothers. And you'll want to, if you have the ability, you'll want to wish them a great Mother's Day. But let's close up. I wanted to read this about wonderful, wise mothers. Proverbs 31. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time they come. She looks well to the ways of her household, or she opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. And she looks well to the ways of her household, and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her happy. I'm sure all of you kids do that all the time. Her husband too, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is vain. But a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her a share in the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the city gates. Isn't that awesome?